My mother-in-law smiled at me from across the table on the last Christmas I spent in that house. It was a warm smile, practiced, the kind she had been giving me for 6 years, while simultaneously telling her son that I was ruining his life. I smiled back because I had already spoken to a lawyer. I had already moved my savings. I had already signed a lease on an apartment she didn't know existed. And in exactly 11 days, I was going to walk out of that house with my daughter, my dog, and every single thing I came into that marriage with. My name's Dora. I am 34 years old, and this is the story of the 6 years it took me to understand that some families don't want a daughter-in-law. They want a servant who is grateful for the privilege. I need you to understand who I was before I tell you who I became. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, middle of the state, middle of everything. The kind of town where everyone knows your grandmother's maiden name and your business is never entirely your own. My parents were good people, ordinary people. My father worked at a shipping company for 22 years. My mother taught 3rd grade for almost 30. We were not wealthy. We were not connected to anyone important, but our house was warm and honest, and nobody in it played games with each other's feelings. That turned out to be both the best and the worst preparation for what was coming. I was a nurse. I had been one since I was 23. I worked in a cardiac unit at a regional hospital, long hours, hard days, the kind of work that asks everything of you and gives back in ways that are difficult to explain to someone who has never done it. I loved it. I was good at it. I had my own apartment, my own car, my own savings account with a number in it that I had built one paycheck at a time since my first year of nursing. I was not looking for anyone when I met Marcus's. I was, in fact, standing in a hospital elevator at 6:45 in the morning, still wearing my coat and holding a terrible coffee from the machine. In the parking garage, he stepped in on the 3rd floor, tall, quiet, slightly disheveled in the way of someone who had also started their morning before they were ready. He looked at my coffee cup and said, "That machine hasn't made anything drinkable since 2019. I said, "I know. I keep hoping it will surprise me." He smiled. I took note of the smile. He was a physical therapist. His department was 2 floors below mine. We started running into each other with the frequency that only happens when the universe is either being kind or setting you up for something. I chose to believe it was kindness. For 2 years it was. Marcus was the oldest of 3 children. His mother, Patricia, was a woman who had built her entire identity around her family, specifically around being the person her family could not function without. She cooked every Sunday dinner. She called each of her children every single morning before 9. She remembered every birthday, organized every holiday, finaged every family gathering with the precision of someone running a military operation in a floral apron. And she was, I want to be fair about this, genuinely loving toward her children. The problem was that love and control, for Patricia, were the exact same thing. I did not understand this at first. What I saw in those early months of dating Marcus was a warm and devoted mother who clearly adored her son. I told my own mother this on the phone once. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Does she ask you many questions about yourself?" I thought about it. I realized that in 6 months of dinners and gatherings and Sunday afternoons, Patricia had asked me almost nothing about my work, my family, my life. Before Marcus, she asked Marcus things constantly in my presence, as though I were a piece of furniture that had recently appeared in her son's apartment, and she was still deciding whether it matched the room. I told myself I was being uncharitable. I told myself she just needed time to warm up I told myself a lot of things in those early days. Marcus proposed after 2 years. A quiet evening, just the two of us, in my apartment. He cooked badly, endearingly, and asked, while we were washing dishes, because he said he couldn't wait any longer and the ring was burning. A hole in his jacket pocket. It was the most Marcus thing imaginable. I said yes before he finished the sentence. I called my mother first. She cried happy tears. When Marcus called Patricia, she asked immediately whether we had discussed where we would live. Not congratulations, not I'm so happy for you. Where will you live? Marcus told her we would figure it out. She said she had some thoughts. She had more than thoughts. She had a complete plan. Patricia wanted us to live close. Not near close, as in the house 2 streets away from hers that her brother was selling, as in she had already spoken to him, as in there was a price and a timeline, and a vision for Sunday dinners that now included us walking over instead of driving. Marcus told me this carefully, in the way of a man who already sensed the temperature of the room was about to change. I told him I appreciated the thought, but that we should find our own place, that starting a marriage in a house chosen by your mother 2 streets from her front door was not the beginning I had imagined. He agreed with me. I watched him agree with me, and then I watched him over the following 2 weeks slowly become less certain that he agreed with me. Patricia had a way of working. Not loudly, never loudly. She worked in small conversations, in quiet observations, in questions that sounded innocent, but weren't. Marcus, wouldn't it be nice to be close to family when the babies come? Marcus, I just want to make sure Dora feels supported. Does she have family nearby? Marcus, I'm not saying anything. I just want what's best for both of you. She never said anything directly. She never had to. She planted seeds and then stepped back and watched them grow in her son's mind until he believed the thoughts were his own. We ended up 3 streets away, not the brother's house, I held that line, but 3 streets. I told myself it was a compromise. Looking back, it was the first in a very long series of surrenders I did not recognize as surrenders until much later, the first year of our marriage. I worked very hard to make things work. With Patricia, I showed up to every Sunday dinner. I helped in the kitchen without being asked. I remembered her preferences: no onions, tea, not coffee, the particular brand, of crackers she liked with cheese, and I accommodated them without comment. I was warm, I was present, I was trying, and Patricia was polite, always polite, the kind of polite that keeps a specific distance, the kind that gives you just enough warmth to make you feel like you're imagining the cold. She never insulted me directly. She was far too sophisticated for that. Instead, there were small observations. Marcus mentioned you've been working a lot of overtime. That must be so hard on him. I noticed you didn't make it to Easter dinner last year. Family time is so important, especially now. I just hope you and Marcus are finding enough time for each other. Marriage takes investment, always framed as concern, always delivered with that warm smile, always with Marcus somewhere in the room to hear it. And Marcus, good, loving, conflict-averse. Marcus would hear these things, and something would shift in him just slightly, just enough. He would be quiet on the drive home. He would bring up things like whether I was putting in too many overtime shifts, whether we could make it to more Sunday dinners, whether I had thought about how much Patricia just wanted to be close to us. He wasn't being cruel. He was being managed, and I was watching it happen from the inside, too close to see it clearly. My daughter was born in our 2nd year of marriage, the most extraordinary day of my life. Lily, 6 pounds 9 ounces, dark hair, wide eyes, the loudest, crying in the maternity ward, which the nurses said was an excellent sign, in which I believed immediately because I needed her to be fierce. Patricia arrived at the hospital 40 minutes after the birth. For my own mother, she had not been called first. She had not been called before. My mother, she lived closer and drove faster. She walked in, went directly to the bassinet, picked up. My daughter turned to Marcus and said, "She looks just like you." She did not look at me. She did not say anything to me. I had just delivered a baby. I lay in that hospital bed and said nothing and kept my face completely still, and I felt something change inside me, very quietly, the way a lock turns. I want to try to explain the middle years. They're the hardest to describe because they were not dramatic. There was no single terrible event, no explosion, no obvious crisis. There was just a slow, steady erosion. Patricia inserted herself into our parenting decisions with the consistency of water finding cracks in stone. When Lily started solid foods, Patricia sent Marcus's articles about what babies should eat. Not me, Marcus, with notes attached. When I chose a daycare for Lily, that I had researched carefully and felt confident about. Patricia mentioned to Marcus that she had heard something concerning about the area. She couldn't remember where, but she'd heard something when I made any decision regarding our daughter that did not first pass through Patricia's awareness. There would be a conversation, not with me, with Marcus's, and then Marcus would have a concern. Marcus's concern would need to be discussed, and I would be managing my husband's anxieties while working 36-hour shifts and raising a small child. I started to lose myself somewhere. In year 3, not dramatically, not all at once, I stopped suggesting things because suggesting things led to them being questioned, reconsidered, passed through Patricia, and returned to me changed. I stopped pushing back because pushing back led to conversations where I ended up defending myself instead of addressing the original issue. I stopped saying what I actually thought because what I actually thought was, your mother is slowly, systematically replacing me in this family, and you are letting her because you love her and because loving her has always been easier than seeing her clearly. I couldn't say that. Not yet. Instead, I worked. I worked more overtime. I focused on Lily. I focused on the things I could control. And quietly, very quietly, without telling anyone, I started saving. Not for anything specific. Just because some part of me, the part that had been a self-sufficient person before all of this, understood. That self-sufficiency is something you have to maintain, that you cannot let it go dormant and expect it to be there when you need it. So I saved, and I waited, not for a plan, just for clarity. The moment I knew it was over came. On an ordinary Wednesday afternoon, Lily was 4. I had just finished a 12-hour shift. I came home to find Patricia in my kitchen, not visiting, not dropping something off. In my kitchen, cooking. Marcus was at work. Patricia had a key. She had asked for one when Lily was born, and Marcus had given it to her without asking me, and she had let herself in. She told me she thought I must be tired from work and she wanted to help. She said this while standing at my stove, using my pans, making a meal that she knew I would eat because it was her son's childhood favorite and not anything I had ever cooked in my own home before. I set my bag down. I thanked her. I went upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time in years, I let myself think the thought I had been carefully not thinking. This is not a marriage. This is an arrangement in which I work, parent, and maintain this household, while another woman decides what happens in it. I sat with that thought for a long time. When I came back downstairs, dinner was on the table. Marcus had arrived home. He was smiling at his mother, the way he always smiled at her, grateful. easy, a man who had never had to think twice about being loved by the person in front of him. And I sat at that table and I ate and I smiled and I said the meal was wonderful. That night after Patricia left and Lily was asleep, I opened my laptop. I searched for family law attorneys in our county. I was not hysterical. I was not even particularly sad. I was just very, very clear, the kind of clear that comes when you finally stop arguing with yourself about something you have known for a long time. I want to be honest about this part. I did not act impulsively. I spent 3 months being completely certain before I made a single move. I called an attorney on a Tuesday morning from the parking lot of the hospital. I told her everything in 90 minutes. She told me what I needed to know. She was clear, direct, and did not make me feel small for any of it. I documented everything. 6 years of patterns of incidents, of the quiet architecture of what had happened in my marriage. Dates and details kept in a private account he had no access to, forwarded to my attorney as I gathered them. I found an apartment, 2 bedrooms, one for me, one for Lily. The school district one had researched a distance that was reasonable for shared custody but no longer meant Patricia could walk through my front door. I signed the lease in October. I paid the deposit from savings. He did not know I had. I continued going to Sunday dinners. I continued being warm and present and exactly who I had always been. On the outside, inside I was building a door, and I gave myself a date. The day after Christmas. Not to be cruel about the timing, simply because the holidays would give Lily stability and give me the time I needed to make sure everything was in place before I moved. The last Christmas dinner, Patricia smiled at me across the table. I smiled back. Lily sat between us building something out of napkins and asking everyone to admire it. I admired it very sincerely. 11 days, I thought. Just 11 more days. I told Marcus on the 26th of December. Lily was at my mother's. I had arranged that deliberately. I sat him down in the living room. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say many times, but in the end, I said it simply. I told him our marriage was not working. I told him I had tried for 6 years to be the person this family needed. Me to be, and that somewhere in those 6 years I had lost the person I actually was. I told him I loved him. That was true. It was also not enough. I told him I had found an apartment, that I would be moving in 2 weeks, that I had spoken to an attorney, and that I wanted us to handle things as peacefully as possible for Lily. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked if this was about his mother. I thought carefully about how to answer that. I told him it was about everything. It was about 6 years of decisions made without me, or around me, or in response to what his mother thought was best. It was about being in a house where I was the wife on paper and a guest in practice. It was about watching him choose her approval over my reality. So many times that I had stopped, bringing him my reality. I did not say it angrily. I said it the way you describe, something that has already happened. Because for me, it already had. He cried. I had not seen Marcus cry many times in 6 years. He was not a man who cried easily. He asked if we could try again. He asked about counseling. He said he had not seen it clearly, but he could see it now. I told him I believed him. I also told him that I had been watching him not see it clearly for 6 years, and that I had raised it before, gently and then less gently, and that each time something had shifted just enough to keep me hoping and then drifted back. I told him I did not have another 6 years in me. He did not argue. He was a good man. That was the complicated part. He was a genuinely good man who had been so deeply shaped by one person's needs that he had never fully learned to see anyone else's. That is not cruelty, But it is not a marriage either. Patricia called me the following morning. Her voice was controlled. The warm surface was still there, but something underneath it had changed temperature. She told me she was shocked. She told me she had always welcomed me. She told me she had never done anything but try to support our family. I let her speak. When she finished, I told her that I heard her and that I did not doubt her intentions. Then I said something I had been holding for a long time. I told her that intentions and impact are different things, that she could love her son completely and sincerely, and still have made it very difficult for him to build a life with someone else, not through malice, simply through never learning where she ended and where we were allowed to begin. She said I was being unfair. I said I understood why it felt that way. Then I told her that going forward, my attorney would be in contact regarding Lily's schedule and that all conversations about that would need to go through that channel. She went very quiet. That quiet was the first time in 6 years I had felt something like equilibrium with her. Not victory, not anger, just two people finally standing on equal ground because I was no longer pretending the ground was something it wasn't. I moved on a Saturday in January. My father drove 4 hours to help me. My mother came the day before and helped me pack Lily's room carefully, wrapping each thing in paper, labeling each box in large letters, so Lily would know exactly where everything was going. My college roommate flew in. I had not asked any of them to come. They simply appeared in the way that real people appear when something matters. We moved everything in 6 hours. The apartment was small and smelled of fresh paint and had a window in the kitchen that looked onto a courtyard where someone had planted a small tree. I stood in the empty living room. After everyone had left, Lily was at Marcus's for the weekend, our first official custody weekend. Handled calmly, Lily told it was an adventure with 2 homes now, and that she was loved in both. I stood in that room alone. No Sunday dinners, no footsteps on the porch, no key in the lock that wasn't mine. Just my things, my space, my name on the lease. I had a small breakdown then. I want to be honest about that too. Not because I doubted myself, but because grief is not only for things that were bad. You can grieve something that was real and good once and became something else. You can grieve the version of a future you believed in. I sat on the floor of that empty living room and I let myself feel all of it for about 20 minutes. Then I got up, I put the kettle on, and I started unpacking. It has been 14 months since I moved. Lily is 5 now. She is doing well. Children are more resilient than we. Give them credit for when they are surrounded by people who love them and tell them the truth at an age-appropriate pace. Marcus and I co-parent respectfully. It took a few months to find the rhythm of it, but we found it. He is a good father. That was never in question. He started his own therapy. He told me this in a text message that was carefully worded and asked for nothing back. I replied that I was glad. I meant it. Patricia sees Lily when she is at Marcus's. I have made my peace. With that, Lily loves her grandmother. That is a good thing. And the grandmother and I no longer share a house or a life, or a dynamic in which her needs and mine are in constant collision. Distance is a form of peace. That closeness never allowed us. I went back to full-time hours at the hospital this spring. My colleagues threw a small welcome back gathering that made me cry in the break room, which I tried to do quietly and failed. My apartment has a small garden now. I grew lavender in pots on the patio because I had always wanted to. And there had always been some reason not to. The wrong house, wrong soil. The pots would be in Patricia's way. At Sunday dinner, the lavender bloomed in August. Lily called it purple and picked some for her backpack. I kept a stem on my kitchen windowsill. It dried slowly over September and I left it there because I could. People ask me if I have regrets. Honest answer, yes and no. I regret that it took me 6 years. I do not regret the 6 years themselves because they gave me Lily. And Lily is the most important thing that has ever happened to me. I regret that I spent so long hoping the situation would change on its own, that I kept believing the next year would be different. What I know now is this. When someone shows you the structure of their family, the hierarchy, the priorities, the unspoken rules about whose needs come first, believe them, not unkindly, not with judgment, simply, honestly, because a person does not stop loving their family when they marry you. And if their family has never had to make room for anyone else, they will not naturally learn to do so simply because you arrived. That has to be chosen, actively, repeatedly, with full awareness. If the person you love is not choosing it or cannot see that it needs to be chosen, that is information. It does not make them a bad person. It makes them someone whose life is arranged in a way that does not have space for you in it. And you deserve space. You deserve to walk into your own kitchen without wondering if someone let themselves in while you were at work. You deserve a partner who brings your concerns to the table rather than bringing the table back to their mother. You deserve the lavender on the windowsill. If any part of this story sounded familiar to you, if you are sitting somewhere right now in something that feels like this, I want you to know something. Clarity is not betrayal. Leaving is not failure. Knowing your own worth and refusing to negotiate it down into nothing is the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for your daughter, if you have one, or your son, or whoever is watching you and learning from you what love is supposed to look like. I am Dora. I am 34 years old. I have a daughter who picks lavender for her backpack, and I am, for the first time, in a long time exactly, where I am supposed to be. Thank you for being here tonight. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who might need it. Leave me a comment. I want to know, what was the moment you finally saw things clearly? Subscribe if you want to hear the next story. It comes out every week. Take care of yourselves. See you next video.